wanted to see what would grow and what wouldn't grow. We're at about 2,900 feet. It's actually a greater revelation.
Somehow I think our Father has a purpose in all of this. One of his purposes is to keep us in the Word.
But what we're trying to show people is that they can actually do this. And I know they can because we're doing it.
This is a prophecy of the end when the fiery flying serpent, the one that showed up in Eden, is coming back in his full glory at the time of the end. At the time when spiritual Babylon is destroyed, God is trying to tell us, hey, don't rejoice, it's about to get way worse. This is when Satan himself shows up on the scene. 1260 ushers in the period that Daniel calls the time of trouble, such as there never was. This is the time of trouble, such as there never was, when Satan actually takes the throne of this earth. And he tells us about Daniel chapter 12, verse 11. And from the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away, that's what we saw about the 1150, that's the starting point. From the time that the daily sacrifice is taken away until the abomination of desolation is set up, the ultimate abomination of desolation is who? Satan. Is 1,290 days. 1,290 days. The little horn is gone. Satan sits on the throne just when the world is rejoicing. It's about to get worse. This is the time of trouble such as never was since there was a nation. And he declares himself to be the Messiah. This event is the abomination of desolation that Yeshua told us that we need to understand. When you see the abomination of desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, let the reader understand. Okay, 2 Thessalonians tells us about this. Let no one deceive you by any means, for that day will not come unless the falling away comes first. The man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he sits as God in the temple of God, showing himself that he is God. This is Paul telling us this. Therefore, when you see the abomination, desolation spoken of by Daniel the prophet, standing in the holy place, whoever reads, let him understand. With Satan in charge, the 10-day death decree begins, Revelation 20, verse 10. 5 months of Revelation 9, 5 to 10, when the demons are loosed from the abyss. 150 days begins at the Day of Atonement. And the end of the death decree is 1300. And day 1335 is very near now. To counterwork the work of the wicked, God sends the 7 last plagues on the Day of Atonement to consume the wicked, to protect his people, actually. He sends the 7 last plagues as a major distraction to protect his people during this 5-month period. The deception will be so strong that you will believe that there are. So the reality check of the whole thing is when Satan shows up, it's no wonder, for he transforms himself into an angel of light. False Christs, false prophets will arise and show great signs, if possible, to even deceive the very elect. Of course, it's not possible for the elect to be deceived. Why isn't it? Why isn't it? Because they know the voice of the shepherd. They know the voice of the shepherd.
John 10.
Yes. It always comes back to John 10. Because my sheep will not follow another. I propose that there's many voices out there, but there's only one true shepherd. And he's got one message for his people. It's not a multitude of messages that conflict with each other. So if we start to know the voice of the shepherd, we will not be deceived. We will not be deceived. And he has given us the spirit of prophecy, which is the voice of the shepherd. It's the testimony of Yeshua. It all comes back to the same thing. Who are we listening to? Here again, red letters. Start in the red letters and then go elsewhere. But make sure you understand what he said. O Jerusalem, the one who kills the prophets and stones those who are sent to her. How often I would wanted to gather your children together as the hen gathers her chicks under her wings, but you were not willing. See, your house is left unto you desolate. For I say to you, you shall see me no more till when? Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord. Hebrews tells us, but you have come to Mount Zion, to the city of the living God. This is back then. He's telling the believers, you've come to this. It's the transfer. It's the earthly sanctuary, which everything in it was a picture of the heavenly sanctuary. He's telling the believers now that you have come to Mount Zion, the city of the living God, the heavenly Jerusalem, where our forerunner is already gone. He's already cleared all this out in... This is the culmination of the whole plan of salvation here. He says all this stuff that was to point forward to the heavenly sanctuary, this is where we go now. This is what you're supposed to be looking at, the heavenly sanctuary. The shadow now has pointed us forward to the reality. And he goes on to say in 13:10, we have an altar from which those who serve the tabernacle have no right to eat. The Levites were still serving at the temple in Jerusalem, and what the writer of Hebrews says is those Levites have no right to eat of our altar because they have rejected their own Messiah, the high priest who has gone before us into the heavenly sanctuary to do the work, the last work of his ministry. And these Levites have rejected it. And he says they have no right to even partake of this heavenly sanctuary, the heavenly Jerusalem. Even Jerusalem was a type of the heavenly Jerusalem. It was to point forward to the heavenly Jerusalem. They rejected Yeshua, their Messiah, the Messiah whom the sanctuary services had pointed forward to, and they remained focused on the earthly sanctuary and the earthly Jerusalem instead of changing their focus to the heavenly sanctuary. He goes on to say, for here, the earthly Jerusalem, we have no continuing city, but we seek the one to come. What I'm seeing in the book of Hebrews is he was trying to take what all the shadows represented, and he was trying to point them to a heavenly, and he says, we are looking to the heavenly, not to the earthly now, because the transition has come. Yeshua's parables teach this. It says, the parable of the wicked vine dressers, they killed the servants. This is why they have no right to eat of the altar. They killed the servants and the son, planning to seize his inheritance. Therefore I say to you, the kingdom of God will be taken from you. Who? The priests, the Pharisees, the Levites, and so on, and given to a nation that will bear its fruits. The invited servants went their own way, and they killed the servants. The wedding feast. Then he said to the servants, the wedding is now ready, but those who were invited, hey, hi guys. Those who were invited were not worthy, for many are called, but few are chosen.
Y es lo mismo que significa el hombre y Dios y el sábado en el medio. El sábado es ese pacto matrimonial del hombre con Dios.
All I'm doing here is I'm just pointing you to look at these connections. And when I leave and I'm halfway across the ocean, you're going to be able to start studying this out yourself. So we can't miss these parallels. so we have to study for ourselves.
Our first study group, and they just told us what they were interested in, and that's what we did. So, and you got a handful of Daniel and Revelation again, but that is exactly what they were after. They want to know what all that stuff meant for us today.